Make like the caterpillar and get your hookah. You're going to need it. In today's video from Tulgey TV, we're going to visit Wonderland. Alice in Wonderland, that is, produced in 1951, but the year in question is not 1951, it's 1974. That's right, we're going to take a look at the 1974 theatrical reissue of Alice in Wonderland. What's so special about that? Weren't Disney animated features regularly re-released to theaters right up through the 1980s? Yes, but Alice in Wonderland was a different story because in its initial release in 1951, it was not exactly a financial bonanza at the box office. And unlike earlier Disney animated features, like Pinocchio, that were not successful at the box office, Alice in Wonderland was not reissued to theaters, for one good reason. Walt Disney saw the reason that audiences didn't embrace Alice. Quite simply, he felt it lacked heart.
Alice in Wonderland came out and just made a nosedive, you see. Cinderella, you pulled for Cinderella. You felt for Cinderella. Alice, there are millions of people who didn't care about Alice. There's no heart to it.
So, in 1954, Alice in Wonderland was shown as the second episode of the Disneyland TV anthology show. And it was shown on the Disney TV Hour several times after that as well.
On this program, we're going to take you out of this world of reality for a visit to the most fantastic of all the worlds of fantasy. It's a wonderful world of colorful characters. The Mad Hatter, the March Hare, the Cheshire Cat, the White Rabbit, and the Queen of Hearts. It's the world of one of the most famous storytellers of all times. His real name was Charles Dodson, and by profession, he was a teacher of mathematics at the Oxford University. But down through the years, people the world over have known him as Lewis Carroll, author of Alice in Wonderland. Now our story starts in a favorite Carroll setting, a drowsy summer afternoon on the banks of a quiet river in the English countryside.
But an interesting thing happened. As time went on, people stopped comparing Alice in Wonderland to other Disney animated features and accepted Alice in Wonderland on its own terms. Because even though it may be lacking some of the qualities we expect from a Disney animated feature, it certainly has brilliant animation. Another piece of the puzzle in this curiouser and curiouser quest is that the film was available for many years, even though it wasn't shown in theaters, because it was shown as part of the 16mm film catalog that made certain Disney films available to schools, clubs, organizations that could rent these films, show them to their members, and as long as they weren't charging admission, it all made for a great experience. One of the films that was made available through this rental catalog was Fantasia, and since it was shown at colleges and universities, students literally turned on to the brilliant animation. And that made Disney sit up and take notice. And in 1969, Fantasia, the perennial underdog at the box office, was reissued. And for the first time in its history, remember it was made in 1940, Fantasia was a hit at the box office. Long lines around the theaters. It was especially popular in college towns and at art houses. This youthful but adult market embraced Fantasia on its own terms. So Disney began taking another look at Alice in Wonderland. Here's the cover for the 1969-1970 edition of the rental catalog, and you can see here how prominently Alice in Wonderland is displayed. So if it worked for Fantasia, why couldn't it work for Alice in Wonderland? Eventually, it was decided that for the first time in the history of the film, Disney was going to reissue Alice in Wonderland to theaters for Easter 1974. And with that background, I thought it would be fun to look at some of the ways it was marketed and some of the merchandise surrounding the reissue. Now, you've already seen the poster here. This was the Psychedelic Poster. That was the heart of the campaign that was meant to emphasize the trippiness of the feature. And interestingly, the look of this campaign had its roots in 1969 when the Alice in Wonderland Storyteller album was reissued with art very similar to this. That's where this art for the 1974 reissue came from. As some of you know, Disney issued letterhead stationery that tied in with its theatrical releases. And this re-release of Alice in Wonderland was no exception. And again, through its use of color and its design, it tied in with this whole psychedelic approach. Here is a suitably trippy invitation to a special preview that was held at the Walt Disney Studios. And the reason I have this is because when I was curating the 9 Old Men D23 Gold Member gift set, I included this invitation to indicate that the brilliant animation of the 9 Old Men in Alice in Wonderland was finally being paid respect and being embraced, and so was being reissued in 1974. A great tribute to all the talent that went into this film. Alice in Wonderland being one of the animated features that all 9 of the 9 Old Men worked on. As always, comic books were a big part of Alice in Wonderland. I know I've shown you this 1951 adaptation in a previous video or two, and here it is again, just to remind you what it looked like. And this adaptation was reprinted in 1974 in a different form, because during this era we had Walt Disney Comics Digest. And you can see here on the cover that it's quite emphasized. Another 1951 comic book was New Adventures of Alice in Wonderland, called Unbirthday Party. And that was republished in 1974 under the Walt Disney Showcase umbrella. So quite a clever use of the comics, I thought, Comics Digest and Walt Disney Showcase. This adaptation of the film was drawn by Riley Thompson, while these new adventures were drawn by fan favorite Al Hubbard. There was also a new adaptation in the Sunday comics as part of the Walt Disney's Treasury of Classic Tales series, and that adaptation was beautifully drawn by Mike Ahrens. Another very interesting artifact is this coloring book that was issued in 1974. And it has this cover by Al Hubbard. But the cover is the key to this whole thing, because this is actually a reissue of the coloring book first published in 1951 with a new cover. Unfortunately, they didn't use the psychedelic motif, which I think would have been really cool. Actually, I have a copy of that coloring book from 1951. Thanks to the generosity of legendary Disney artist and friend of Tulgey TV, Mike Giamo, who gave it to me as a gift. But unfortunately, I can't find it to show it to you. Sorry, Mike, it must be buried in a storage bin somewhere. So I can't show it to you here in my hand, but I can show it to you this way. This is the cover. So the cover is new, but the interior is not. But it's really great because it has these wonderful illustrations that I just love. And I'll show you a few pages here. Here's the bread and butterflies. Here's the caterpillar as a butterfly. That would be really fun to color. And some of the really fun characters like the dodo and Bill the lizard, ones you don't see portrayed very often. So the illustrations in this coloring book are by Disney artist Bob Grant. And a moment ago I said that the comic book here was drawn by Riley Thompson. That's only half true. Riley Thompson did the pencils, but Bob Grant did the inking. So the style is just the same as in the coloring book. And as I said, it's a style that I just love. So how fun that this coloring book, complete with new non-psychedelic cover, is part of the merchandise released for the 1974 reissue. As we can see from this page out of the 1974 press book, there were some cool tie-ins. This is the Jiffy Pop tie-in. Jiffy Pop was a Disney licensee at the time and would often have some kind of prize inside designed to tie in with a new release like for example Robin Hood from 1973, or a reissue like Pinocchio. Alice in Wonderland got the Jiffy Pop treatment with these magic picture kits that were part of 4 million packages of Jiffy Pop popcorn. And as it says, each package front and in-pack premium magic picture kit carries the motion picture credit for Alice in Wonderland, showing 4 different amusing scenes from the film. And sure enough, on the front of the package it says, "See it now at your local movie theater." There were 30-second TV commercials tied into Alice in Wonderland that aired on top-rated programming on the NBC and CBS networks in March and April. And in stores, there were 60,000 point-of-sale displays. Jiffy Pop's 7-foot high tree topper point-of-sale displays will be up in over 20,000 supermarkets and grocery stores nationwide. Sounds like it would be pretty successful, and it must have been, because Disney continued this association with Jiffy Pop for quite some time. We also had a tie-in with, get this, Wonder Bread. Get it? Alice in Wonderland, Wonder Bread. It works perfectly, you have to admit. For this, there were free Alice in Wonderland stickers. Over 5 million loaves of Continental Baking's Wonder Bread will feature Alice in Wonderland identification, offering 5 Alice character stickers inside the loaves, with 1 sticker per loaf. And that's a lot of bread behind this national promotion, so says the press book. There are point-of-sale displays everywhere. Special tie-in point-of-sale materials will be featured across the country in Wonder Bread's 150,000 retail grocery outlets. And of course, there were also TV commercials. The special 30-second color Wonder Bread Alice in Wonderland TV commercial highlighting the premium will be aired in a $175,000 TV campaign. So that's just a brief overview of some of the highlights of the Alice in Wonderland 1974 reissue, featuring this whole psychedelic approach. Please be sure and be with me next time for more from Tulgey TV.
Most everyone's mad here.